Hey everybody, how's it going? Stephen Feifke here. I'm in my home studio in New York City. This is my piano where I write all my charts. Um, and today I just wanted to talk to you about this new video that I just posted online. It's called I've Got Algorithm. It's a rhythm changes chart I wrote for the Generation Gap Jazz Orchestra, which is a project that I co-lead with trumpet player extraordinaire Bijan Watson. And the chart features Chad Lefkowitz-Brown, Chet LB, Mike Rodriguez, Roxy Coss, Tom Luer. It also features Ulysses Owens Jr. on the drums, and I take a piano solo as well. And last time I made one of these videos, it was to talk about a video that I arranged for the Chad LB Virtual Big Band, which is called Easy to Love. And a lot of you guys really liked it. I was just talking about how I wrote certain parts of the big band arrangement. So for this video, I figured that I'd just do the same thing and kind of talk you through my process of how I wrote this score, um, seeing as it is just a rhythm changes. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open Sibelius, and I'm going to have to go into Sibelius. I'm going to have to change the playback settings so that we can all hear this. Zoom audio device, and I think maybe what I can do is just kind of play a bit of the recording for everybody. This is Dan Chmielewski on the bass, Will Graham on guitar, and I'm on piano, Ulysses is on drums. Here we go. All right, and you may have noticed that there are some extremely high trumpet parts in there. Um, and as I said before, one of the great things about leading a band with Bijan Watson is that you can write all the high notes you want. So Bijan, if you're watching this, I promise that I won't take advantage of that. But just to talk through a little bit of this up to where we stopped, which is basically, there are three choruses of rhythm changes so far. The first chorus, and this is something that I learned from Thad Jones, is, um, to start with the piano solo or a guitar solo. But in this case, I figured I'm playing the piano. I may as well take a little bit of um, a solo out front. Basically, what that does is it kind of allows the rhythm section just to lock in a little bit. It allows the ensemble to start checking out their parts if it's a live gig, obviously, and it kind of just relaxes everything and starts off the vibe with more of an improvisational approach. And for this project, and actually a lot of the way that I write for big band in general, is that I really like to showcase the intimacy of the small group, and I really like to showcase the individuality of the musicians that are part of the ensemble. So this just felt like a really great way to do that. Featuring the piano trio plus guitar out front makes things feel smaller than they actually are. It makes you feel like you're closer, whether you're watching the video or whether you're at a live gig. So that's something that you can do on your charts, is you can start with a chorus of rhythm section up front, or maybe a rhythm section intro or something like that. And this is not something that I do on every chart, but for a rhythm changes, I definitely did take a page out of the Thad Jones playbook for sure. Um, so yeah, I have the piano player, in this case me, takes a chorus out front, and then we have the presentation of the melody. Um, and the way that I orchestrated this was just for all of the saxophones and the saxophone section here. I mean, this whole ensemble is ridiculous. The saxophone section, this is Alexa Tarantino, Christopher McBride, Tom Luer, Roxy Coss, Lawrence Sevian, and then Chad LB is playing the tenor sax feature. And then I gotta just give it up for the rest of the band really quickly. This is my co-leaders chair, Bijan Watson, Tanya Darby, Mike Rodriguez, Danny Giannacucci. Lead trombone is John Fetchok, the legend. So honored to have him and everybody a part of this ensemble. This is Javier Nero. This is Kalia Vandiver. This is Jennifer Wharton. Again, this is Will Bram on guitar, myself on piano, Dan Chemalinsky on the bass, and this is Ulysses Owens Jr. on the drums. So this is the melody. And the way that I orchestrated this is actually everybody's playing in the same octave except for Barry Sax, who's playing an octave lower. And you can kind of think of Barry Sax as like a big alto saxophone. Relatively speaking, it has the same range. And it just sounds a lot bigger. So one thing that you'll start to learn as you write more and more is that the instruments have different textures and different registers. So even though you're hearing the melody of the Barry sax an octave below, you're actually hearing it in the same tessitura on that instrument as you're hearing the alto melody. So, I could have, for instance, I mean, would have been really high, but I could have had the altos play up there, which would have sounded like this. That's too high, right? Like, actually, how I get that energy is that I have the tenor saxophones playing pretty high. That's pretty high in their register. So you're getting the energy of the height, and you're also blending that with like the ease of the register of the alto saxophone. So together, the melody sounds like this. This is, forgive the Sibelius audio. And you'll notice that actually the whole melody is pretty much just being played as it's unison pretty much the whole time. And just to like talk a little bit about the actual harmony of the melody. We're just decorating this is like a 5 chord, right? Roughly F7, right? And this is just cadencing towards the 1. So this contra G, G flat, and F, right? This is just using that, and plus the root as like a pedal tone almost. And that's preparing us for this 5-3. You can hear that there's like a surround note in there. 2, so we're gonna have the minor third. 5, we get the 1 and the 3. 5 and 3 on B flat. We get the E flat minor third on C. We have a pedal tone for this walk up, right? This is E flat, E diminished 7. And so it's just like some really strong bebop language. And when I finally do split things off into harmony here, I have a 5 part chord that is, I'll switch this to concert just in case anybody's having trouble following along. But this B natural or C flat, right, that's the sharp 11 of F7 chord. This is like an F7 altered chord, basically. That's the sharp 9, that's the flat 9, that's the 7, that's the 5th, right? So together, if I had to turn around and play this on piano, and I hope this is clear on the recording. It's a chord that doesn't actually include the third, but it has so much crunch, and I think I have Chad super high in his register. I just love the sound of him in particular in that register. So the next section is kind of cool, right? Because I'm utilizing literally like one of the when I teach my students, I say this is literally the oldest trick in the book. Bach used it, Mozart used it. It's like an old choir technique, right? First the boys say it, then the girls say it, or first the girls say it, and then the boys say it, right? And what that means is like high-low or low-high, right? So like, you know, beat-o. And you can see that visually, right? The trumpets and the trombones, the brass section is just filling up this little gap over here in the saxophones, right? Bida, 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 lido, da, bida, da, bida, bida, lido, da, ba, da, 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 boom. Or you can see that I'm literally just taking these naturally occurring breaks in the melody and filling those with the brass. I also just want to take a second and highlight what I'm doing in the drum part here, which is not much. I've mentioned this in some previous videos, but the rhythm section in big band orchestration is really like your secret agent. And that's a tip that I got from Andy Farber. And what he means by that, and what I love so much about it, is that you don't want to give the rhythm section so much information in their parts that they're overwhelmed, right? Specifically because you want that intimacy. You want that small group within the big group kind of vibe, right? So if I give the drummer, in this case Ulysses, if I gave Ulysses too much information, he would just play all of it, and that would stop him from being him. And basically, I would be drumming from the conductor chair, which I don't want to do. You know, I don't want to do that. I mean, actually, that was kind of fun. But let's just hear what that sounds like in the MIDI. And you can hear as well that like now I'm actually using harmony in the saxophones when we get to the last four measures. And I don't want to interrupt that harmony, so I'm leaving the brass out. And over here, all I'm doing in the brass is I'm playing like kind of bebop chords, right? So this is like B flat 6, B da da da, da 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 da, right? So B flat. This is coming from like the B flat, the B flat dominant 7 bebop scale. And I have a book out called The Ultimate Guide to Jazz Piano Voicings. And I talk about this technique in there, but basically what I'm doing is I'm going from B flat 6 to G7 flat 9. Right, and that's literally the chord change, B flat to G7, right? So this chord over here, and that's going to, right, and that basically the notes are changing, but they're still like melodically, they're basically functioning as like a mini cadence, and that just repeats over here. And the trombones are orchestrated an octave below the trumpets. And you'll recall from a previous comment I've made about the tessitura of the bari sax and the alto sax, like trumpets and trombones are very similar. So a lot of the time you can just echo them an octave apart and it'll sound great. And then as far as the harmony goes in the saxes, I'm really just following along with the changes. F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7, E flat 7, and you can hear here B flat, G, E flat, C, and F. So right, I have the upper structure of like an F minor 11 chord, and then the bari is playing the root. And then I spread everything, right? When I get to the B flat 7 chord, we have the root, we have the 13, we have the third, and we have the dominant 7, we have the root again, right? Then I have E flat major, 5, 3, 9, 9, 7, root, E flat, right? So together that sounds like this. And you know, like a lot of the time, you know, the answers are just so simple. They're literally right in front of us. One thing that people ask me a lot is like, where do you start when you write for big band? And you know, this is why I'm doing this video today, like with my piano in the background, so that I can really show everybody that, you know, I start at the piano. If I want to harmonize a melody, I just go and I sit down at the piano. I say like, okay, what does an F minor chord need? What does a B flat 7 chord need? And how can I orchestrate these so that it makes the most sense? Then next section, I'm going to play the MIDI first, then I'm going to talk about it, is like the brass get featured, right? So think about this as one giant call and response, this chart, right? The rhythm section, play a chorus out front. Whoop. Rhythm changes, play a chorus out front. And then we go straight into the the saxophones, right? And then we have some brass interjections, but the overall sound of this first two A sections over here is the woodwinds, right, is the reeds. So for the bridge, I gave the woodwinds a break, right? The first thing I do is when I have the chance is that I do some call and response, like in a macro way, right? So here's the brass. Okay, and that's a little fun. I think that actually what Bijan played is this. I think he let the rest of the trumpet players play this, and he took that out, and then he played. And we had some conversations about that, just because he wanted to really allow this part, this melody. He felt that the F and the B natural there were the most important parts of the melody, and I agreed with him. He said, in order to bring that out in the clearest possible way, because it's doubled in the trumpet section and in the saxophone section already, I think that what would be best is if you allow me to accentuate those most important notes. So just an example of how you as a composer or as a arranger or both can allow your band members to really help you write your own chart. And I learn a lot from Bijan and just from everybody in my band, from watching everybody play my charts. And a good rule of thumb for me is that if they're turning red in the face or blue in the face, then I've got to reorchestrate the chart a little bit. So over here I have another section where I've really just echoed the trombones and the trumpets, like similarly like an octave apart, and they're just playing 4-part harmony, kind of dancing around the cadences here, going from D7 to G7 to C7 to F7, and you can even hear that the melody switches between unison and harmony. So if we so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in on the trumpets, because that's the easiest way to talk about this part. But you can see that I wanted to highlight the top few notes of the D, like a D7. If I'm, that's kind of the sound that I want. I didn't really want. But you can hear that, like, even though this chord that I'm playing right now is F sharp, A, C, and D, right? That C being the dominant 7, that actually the B natural. It actually is way more melodic. So I approached those bottom 3 notes here by a half step. And that implied some amount of a melody. So let's just focus on the trumpets. Cool, right? And then this is a pretty fast tempo, right? Right. So I don't need to imply too much harmony. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the mode of D7 take care of itself. And there are specific moments where I do want to dance away from that. And so what I'll do is I'll use like a diminished passing chord, returning. So that's kind of a fun trick. And the set that happens like throughout the whole section. And when I go to G7, same thing. Like it's one half about harmonizing the melody and one half about like allowing the melody to sing. So the harmonies have to be as harmonious and melodious as possible. And if you see as well, like all of these inner voices have a lot of there's really everyone has their own melody. And I'll just isolate the second trumpet part here. And I just want you to listen to what that part sounds like. And it's not going to sound like the melody, obviously, but it'll sound like a melody. Basically, my goal in writing these melodies is that I want to give everybody something that's easy and fun to play. But I also want to give them something that doesn't detract from the melody itself. So altogether, or even just the first 2 trumpets, fun, right? And then we add back in all of the brass. And this is a really good example of like the sum of the parts is like the whole is greater than the sum of all the parts, right? Because all of these melodies individually are not super strong melodies, except for the lead melody, obviously. But then when you put them all together and you get the 4-part moving harmony, like that's when the magic happens. So yeah, I capped this off. You know, I like this is a really common orchestrational technique for trumpets is to do 3 down, 1 up, or 3 up, 1 down. In this case, it's 3 down, 1 up because this is actually pretty, like I call that the golden register of the trumpet, and this is like Bijan's golden register of the trumpet, right? So I just wanted to support him as much as possible with the bottom 3 horns. And the sax is I just have like a little descending 5-note voicing, basically. And I'm bringing out this this B natural by approaching it chromatically, and this is winding up as, you know, an F7 chord, so F7 sharp 11, so that's 3, or F9 sharp 11 to be totally accurate. 5, 7, 9, sharp 11, sharp 11. All right, I got to get my Jacob Collier game on, guys. And then together, you know, just sax is isolated so we can hear that. And then with the trumpets, not sure what just happened there. And then you know, this section, we've already kind of talked about this, right, where we have this call and response, but here to change things up, I have the trumpets first, like the brass is continuing to accentuate that B natural, right, from before, but they're also like responding in kind to the rhythm. So it's like some rhythmic call and response. Beat up. And here I'm doing like kind of the Duke Ellington thing of a double diminished pair. I think like Duke technically would be 4 and 3 trombones, so this might be more of like a Gerald Wilson thing where you have the complete diminished chord. So like this is more about like the diminished sound than it is about functional harmony. You didn't hear me say that, but like it's just like because the brass is so close together, right? Like they're not like spread apart. Like sometimes like in some other arrangements, what I might want to do is if I want like a really if I want like a really open sound, like this kind of sounds obvious when what I'm about to say. It's going to sound super obvious, but if you want something to sound open, like spread the voicings apart, like the voices apart further, you know? So like a similar chord. Right, like that's a spread voicing of this. Same notes, literally all the same exact notes, just voiced differently, and one of them sounds more open than the other, and that's because the notes are closer together or further apart. But in orchestrating this at this tempo for the brass, like the fact is that they are going to sound better closer together. It's going to be easier for them to be in tune, and what you're going to hear is like the crunch of the brass, like, and you're not going to like pick apart all of the voicings. I mean, that's what I do. Like I slow things down and I transcribe them so I can figure out what's actually happening. But like the effect, the immediate effect for the listener is, oh, this is crunchy and this is brass sound. So yeah, and then they go down the first time, go up the next time. And then over here, I have the trumpets. You know, if you remember the previous A section, I just had the saxophones sing that part in harmony, but in the last A section, I have the trumpets join in. And together that sounds like this. And what I really like about that sound actually is that it's a lot brighter to mix saxophones and trumpets. It's like a lighter Tootie style, you know, like bringing in the trombones would have made this too heavy for my personal tastes. So that's why I kept them out. And also I wanted them to really be able to like honk out this low F as like the sole, like bah, like the sole registral response to this call. boo da 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 dee da 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 da. And if I'd put them in there, like I think it would have taken away from their sound over here. Okay, so that's pretty much the first chorus. I think what I also wanted to talk about was uh, I know I'm sure some of you are really curious as to. I'll just talk about this really quickly, but basically what I wanted to do in this shout chorus is that I wanted to. This is like a tenor battle feature, and there's 3 ridiculously awesome tenor saxophonists here: Chad Lefkowitz-Brown, Tom Luer, and Roxy Coss. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm doing call and response, like again, but instead of this time the saxophone's leading, the brass are leading. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of the voicings just because I'm kind of short on time. But you can always hit me up through my website if you're curious. But basically, the brass play this melody, and then the tenor saxes respond. Right, so basically, this is my way of introducing. Okay, this is a sax soli. This is a sax solo, not soli. Sorry, but there's call and response happening throughout the tenor saxophone. Right, first Chad, then Tom, then Roxy, and intermittently brass. So then the last time I let the other saxophones join in because I don't know, I wanted to give them something to do. And then I kind of like this moment, just like the fact that the Barry sax is starting all the way at the top of her register, Lauren's register, and she's like going down to a pretty low note. Like this is not the very bottom. She's still got like another major 6 to go, but this is the lowest B flat. And wait, does she have another 6 to go? Hold on a second. Yeah, she does. She still has like a major 6 to go. Or wait, I think Lauren has a extension, so she can go down all the way to that concert C. But yeah, this is the lowest B flat that she can play. And then I have the ensemble come in and play like this big, this is like a spread version of that double diminished chord from before. So this is like a B flat 7 altered, true altered. And altered just means all of the extensions in the chord are altered. So this is a sharp 11. Wow. That's the sharp 9. That's the root. The 13, 5, 3, flat 9, 7. And it's just such a huge sound. So yeah, then there's solos and then there's some backgrounds. And again, like when I'm writing backgrounds, basically what I want to do is just stay out of the way of the soloists. So, you know, for example, if you're checking out, you know, these solos over here, like I'm really, you like, for example, this is like, this is the trading of the tenors, right? Like all the backgrounds are brass, you know, none of the backgrounds are saxophones until here, and this is really just like some guide tone stuff, and they're mixed with the trombones. And we have trumpet solo, and you can see that Mike Rodriguez is accompanied by saxophones and then trombones, but there's no trumpet backgrounds. And then I have a shout chorus here. And the shout chorus, again, like this, since I had already introduced that crunchy sound of the, let me see if I can pull up the timestamp over here in the recording, but since I'd already introduced the sound of the double diminished chord, basically I just thought to myself, like, why not keep going? So I came up with this melody that's kind of like a bluesy style melody, you know? And I just accompanied that with the diminished, you know. I have to delete this just for sake of MIDI playback, but check this out. Sounds so wild when I do it in playback like that, but check out what it sounds like on the actual recording. Literally all you hear is that melody accompanied by crunch. And that's so cool. I just love orchestration, that it has that ability to bring out those kinds of sounds and crunches. And again, like this is just some more call and response, right? Brass, or the whole band really says something. And then Ulysses solos, drum solo, right? So band drums, call and response is like trading fours. And then for the second part, you know, of this theme, I altered the line ever so slightly. And here's how that sounds. Cool, right? Okay, so then at the bridge here, I just couldn't resist. I love Eternal Triangle so much. I just had to superimpose those changes over here. So if you're not familiar with Eternal Triangle, that's a rhythm changes head by Sonny Rollins, and it uses some different changes on the bridge. So instead of going to the third, the 3 dominant, D7 on a B flat rhythm changes, you go to the sharp 4 dominant, approached by 2/5, right? So B minor 7. And the melody for that is. Right, that's that melody. And so here I just gave the chords, the big chords to the brass, right? So we have B minor 11. So that means that the lead trumpet gets an E natural, right? Then we have C sharp, which is the 9, D flat, just for transposition's sake. 7, 5, 7, 5, 3, and root. Together, this is what that chord sounds like. All right, to play it out on the piano, it's basically just stacked up. And then I gave the saxophones a unison melody. And then the trumpet the brass section has some punches. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. And I'm approaching those with some diminished chords. And then I basically just I just decorated and stole the melody from Eternal Triangle. So here's what that sounds like with the ensemble. And you can hear I just recapitulated the shout chorus, like the beginning shout chorus. I capped off this like band solo section with the shout chorus from before. And that leads us right back into the melody. Basically, like what's different here from the head in to the head out is that instead of having the call and response, I have the brass actually comping like a pianist. And then I have the bell tones here. Right? And basically like that's just like rhythmically charging that 5, right? The F is the 5 of B flat. So I don't even have to spell out an F7 chord in order to like give the dominant feel. That's a really common technique that Thad would use as well. So in the MIDI, like check out how this sounds. Super cool, right? And as far as like what are these horn punches voicing wise, I mean, they're very like straightforward. You know, this is G7, so 7, 9, 3, 5, echoed an octave up in the trumpets, and then C minor, right? 9, 7, 5, 3, then F7, we have 7, 9, 3, and 13. And this is literally echoed exactly above. Super cool. I mean, there's not much to this stuff, you know, like if you can spell out these chords and you can come up with really cool rhythms that do not interrupt the melody and melodies that highlight really cool parts of the harmony, then that's kind of all this takes for this style of a chart. So the rest of it is just a recapitulation, and that's a classical term just to say I'm repeating the melody, right? Basically, this is the head out. And you can see visually that this is like literally exactly the same. And let's just play it out. And because this was a virtual chart, you know, what I would normally do for the end of this chart is that I would just put a fermata over everybody's notes here. That's literally what I would do. And I would just like with my hands. If I'm conducting, I would go like, you know, like, come on, come on, come on. I would point at Ulysses. I would say, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Then at a certain point, I'd go like this, cut off, right? But this is virtual, and obviously I'm unable to do that. So basically what I did is I timed out like how much I think it would take. And so I also superimposed this rhythm, which is pretty common way to end a song. Crash. And yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take us out from, I think I stopped the recording right about here, just before the head out, and we can just listen to that. Here. So here we go, the bridge. And that's how I wrote I've Got Algorithm. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. If you have more questions, feel free to write to me through my website. The link is in the video description below. And yeah, stay tuned for more videos. The Generation Gap Jazz Orchestra has more stuff coming out, and my own big band album is dropping on April 9th. And we've got a single coming out at the end of this month and one in February, and that's going to feature Ulysses Owens Jr., it's going to feature Veronica Swift, Alexa Tarantino, Lucas Pino, Benny Benack III, pretty much all my best friends. So I hope you guys learned something, and yeah, I'll do more of these videos. So take care, and Happy New Year.